a man rarely caught on camera. Major General Sir Percy Hobart. 2 years earlier, he had been ushered into retirement by his conservative commanding officers, who found his views on tank warfare too radical. For D-Day, they needed Hobo back.
He was a tall, imposing figure, I suppose, in a strange way. He generally wore a leather jerkin over his battle dress and had what I can only describe as his granny's khaki scarf wound round his neck and dangling down in front. He wore these thick black half-rimmed glasses, so he looked fierce.
Hobart was an innovator. He would coordinate the development of an entire range of customized tanks. He had American Shermans and British Churchills fitted with a whole range of mechanical devices, specially designed to deal with each and every obstacle Rommel had laid in their path. Obstacle number 1, the minefields. An early attempt proved as clumsy as its name, the Anti-Mine Reconnaissance Caster Roller device. Each of its 4 heavy rollers was designed to detonate a mine, sacrificing itself in the process. But the machine could only blow up 3 mines before the whole contraption had to be scrapped. A second prototype was full of promise, the indestructible roller. This time, the roller would not be destroyed by the mine. In a cunning design feature, the force of the explosion would flip the roller forward, reverse the tank a foot or 2, and the roller was back in business.
Indestructible may be a slight exaggeration, but some 20 mines can be detonated by any one roller.
A big improvement. But the tank only detonated the mines directly in front of its tracks. The invasion force could hardly be expected to creep behind the tank in 2 narrow little lines. Finally, a new improved model came off the production line.
This is a Sherman flail tank. As you can see, it's basically a Sherman tank with this gadget on the front, and the chains flail into the ground like this. I haven't got any mines with me today, so you'll have to imagine the explosions. On this model, they're ordinary chains, but the chains that we actually used were these flat ones. This one, as you can see, was blown up. The end of the chain had this enormously heavy ball weight on the end of it, for whopping into the ground and detonating mines. It whacked into the ground hard, as I say, to about 9 inches in depth on ordinary ground.
Blown-up chains could be easily replaced, and they swept a path so wide that troops and vehicles had plenty of room to follow safely behind. The flail tank had a bonus feature. On the outer rim of the rotor barrel, a set of jagged teeth could shred the barbed wire entanglements lining the back of the beaches. 1 tank, 2 obstacles down. Hobart's men churned out a huge variety of obstacle-busting tanks, each with its own mechanized attachment and each with its own code name. The crocodile, the goat, the carrot. They could incinerate concrete bunkers, fill anti-tank ditches and lay bridges. But Hobart's funnies, as they came to be known, were no joke. They would leave their stamp on the beaches of Normandy. 3 months to D-Day, and the Allied planners still had a major problem to resolve. The principal route leading away from the British beaches crossed two heavily guarded bridges spanning the Orne River and the Caen Canal. Intelligence suggested that the bridges were rigged with demolition charges and could be destroyed at the press of a button, leaving the invasion force trapped on the beaches. The only solution was to take both bridges in a surprise raid in the opening minutes of D-Day. But how could they land a crack team of over 150 men right next to their target without alerting the guards? If they tried to parachute in the troops, the loud drone of the aircraft might give the game away. There was a type of aircraft that could bring in the troops in total silence: the glider. The Allies just didn't have the pilots to fly it.
I just thought, well, you know, I can drive a lorry and I can drive a railway engine, I can drive a steam crane, I might as well learn to fly.
I didn't know what a glider was, but we went down to Cardington and there were these RAF officers and Army officers, and I thought, this is good. That was the start of my worries.
Jeff and Peter had never been in a plane. Now they were going to learn to fly 67-foot-long Horsa gliders that could carry in the crack troops needed to take the bridge. First, they would have to master powered flight.
One morning, the instructor would say, off you go, by yourself. What am I doing? It's very quick, really. I mean, you just took off, went up to 500 feet round the aerodrome and landed it, you know.
But learning to fly was just the beginning. Surveillance photos indicated that the Germans were expecting them. Rommel had had sharpened stakes planted in the fields to snare gliders as they landed. But these wooden gliders were designed for crash landing. They had wings that could snap off if they hit the stakes, absorbing the force of the impact, much like a modern car's crumple zone. When the trainee pilots first clapped eyes on a glider, they christened it the airborne coffin.
Well, we didn't know what they were made of until we met them, and it was too late then. I mean, we were in, you know. Well, they had one advantage, you see, that if you did a heavy landing and they broke up, you just walked out and brushed off the splinters and you were all right. Well, you can't do that in a metal aircraft. No. You get bounced around inside, cut and bruised and killed by all sorts of other things. Where's the old glider? You just I say, walk out and get another one.
On D-Day, Allied bombers would tow 6 gliders across the Channel, then release them over the French coastline to cruise silently in for the last few miles. If the glider was badly damaged on landing and its cargo of 27 troops trapped inside, the door could be cast off and the whole rear of the plane blown clear. The men could then leap immediately into combat.
If somebody came to me now and said, you're going to fly in a wooden aircraft without any engines, about 7 miles in complete darkness, no lights or anything to guide you, and land on half a football pitch, about the size of half a football, you'd say, get lost, wouldn't you, or something like that.
What Jeff and Peter didn't know was that they weren't necessarily expected to come home. The head of airborne operations, Air Chief Marshal Sir Trafford Leigh-Mallory, confronted Eisenhower with his predictions that the use of gliders and paratroopers would result in terrible casualties. He foresaw the loss of 70% of the gliders and at least half of the paratroopers. With less than 6 months to go, the plans for the beach assault were handed a last-minute bombshell. Aerial surveillance had revealed a potentially devastating hurdle. Patches of clay and peat on the target beaches. Would this soft earth support the weight of a tank?